Let me just get the spot. 1 second. Okay. Okay, I sometimes get confused where I'm up, and because some people only come on Sundays and some people come on Wednesdays and Sundays. But even if I repeat something, I think it's still quite interesting. So reading from Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta, Book 2, Chapter 2, text 206. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. nāma-saṅkīrtana-stotra. Gītāni bhagavat-puraḥ. śrūyamāṇāni dunvanti. mathurā-smārakāṇi. When I heard the songs, prayers, and congregational chanting of the Lord's name in front of Lord Jagannātha, I was disturbed because they reminded me of Mathurā. In the presence of Lord Jagannātha, devotees would chant names of the Lord like mathurā-nath, Vrindavan Chandra, and Govardhanodharana. They would recite ancient prayers from Puranas and prayers by modern authors. They would sing properly composed songs with suitable melody and rhythm. Hearing those auspicious sounds troubled Gopkumar's mind because they made him more vividly remember Mathura and started him thinking about going back. Om Jnana-timirandasya gananjana shalakaya taksuranmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sa Padantikam Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasade Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, greetings from New Jersey. So we'll put the story in brief context. Samadhi Bhasya. Samadhi Bhasya means that the information comes from a great saint Samadhi. So this is Sanatana Goswami's Samadhi. And his Samadhi is inspired by this deep desire in his heart to explain the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Anarpita Charim Charat Karunaya Bhatir. It hasn't been given for a long time. Samarpyatam Unatojvala Rasam Subhakti Swayam. This bhakti, this brilliant bhakti, this Vrindavan bhakti, the bhakti that God himself wants to experience and has experienced by taking the form of Lord Chaitanya. He wants to give it to the world. And that's so deep within his heart. And he has to meditate very, very deeply, because it's a very deep and esoteric subject. And he has to communicate it to people who have a limited frame of reference to understand that. So he has to figure out how I can give this very high thing and at the same time give them the frame of reference to understand it. That's actually the form of the Bhagavatam itself. This very, very high thing and the frame of reference to understand it. Therefore, there are 9 subject matters, before that 10 subject matters. Atra sargas visargastra statir poshanam utaya manvatara ishakanta naroda mukti ashraya, the ultimate shelter, Krishna. So that's in his heart, and it's an extremely difficult task. If we go back to the first chapter, remember in the Parayaham, it's quoted that way. Even Krishna says, there's no way I can repay you. There's no way I can understand you. This is so high. And he meditates, he prays, and he realizes that there's a summary of the Bhagavatam that who knows where it exists in eternal time. where do Krishna's pastimes begin? Where do they end? So how much can we actually access at a particular point in temporal time when it comes from a realm that's beyond spatio-temporal existence? But somehow this story comes into his mind, and how a story within a story within a story. And it's about Narada Muni's search for the topmost recipient of Krishna's mercy. And then you follow his trajectory, and you actually follow, if not the exact personalities of the Bhagavatam, but a lot of them parallel, because you go from Hanuman, you go from Prahlad to Hanuman to the Pandavas, to dwarf. This is the projection of the Bhagavatam. And it's not only just a story, but the conceptions of bhakti and what bhakti is in its different forms, and a feel for bhakti. So we're kind of, that was the first, right, that was the first chapter. Then the second chapter, after that conclusion was there, and it led to Radharani and the gopis, and this is being told to Uttara. Then she wants to know about the place. And Maharaj Parikshit begins to explain about the place. And again, that concept that the place and the person, you can tell a lot about the person by his environment. You can tell a lot about the environment. You can tell about the person by his environment, and by the environment you can tell about the people who live there. And I'll just give you one example. I had visited Hungary, and I was staying in Budapest, and I went into Sriram Swami's room, and even the desk had translucent drawers, so you can actually see inside the desk that nothing was out of order. Because he's a great Rasika Vaishnava, but he has his personality. So he begins to tell this story, and somehow this story comes of a Mathura Brahmin who gets a mantra, and that mantra is a Gopal mantra, and it's leading him someplace, but he doesn't have the knowledge of the mantra, and somehow it leads him to Braj, And then he somehow meets this Gop Kumar, this cowherd boy, who enlightens him by telling him his own life, which had a similar, it's a similar story. He got this mantra from his guru. Then his guru disappeared, and the mantra, the desire of that mantra was impelling him to find God in a way that it would conform to the revelation he was getting by that mantra. So now we're up to the part where it leads him to Puri. And and he becomes very, very satisfied there because he sees Jagannath and he develops a relationship with Jagannath. But it's kind of like someone who has, I don't know what a horrible example I was about to give. It's a good analogy, but it's socially it doesn't sound so nice. But a person who has two lovers, and he's attracted to both, but he's attracted to more one. And he's with one of the lovers, and very satisfied and very loving, but this other relationship is somehow, so he has this Braja Bhakti, and he's not completely satisfied in Puri. So let me just go and summarize some of the verses now and bring us up to the point we are. So, okay, let me just go. I just need to get the context. So Puri, he enters the temple, he has the darshan, he's stunned by the ecstasy, and more so by the loving exchanges of his devotees, and he faints and he runs towards the deity. Now I'm seeing the Lord of my life. Again, that reminds me of Akrura coming to Vrindavan. Akrura is such an interesting person. He had so many brothers, and when Kamsa came, they all fled. But he stayed and became the chief minister of Kamsa for two reasons. He wanted to serve Krishna by trying to protect Krishna's parents, which were imprisoned by Kamsa. And he wanted to be in a situation where he had a chance to go to Vrindavan, because it wasn't far. He was in Mathura. As Kamsa, he was just waiting. He had that desire. And then when he finally came, on the way that he's going there, and this is the beauty previously of pilgrimage. Buri Japu once made a statement that you when you fly to a place, your body arrives first and then your mind. But in the previous way, and I did this on Padayatra, when I went on Padayatra, when you walk, your mind arrives first. Your mind arrives first to the place. If or the chariot he's going, now I'll see the Lord of my life. So we see this Gop Kumar. He's so attracted to Jagannath. And now I'll see, and he starts running, and he gets beaten in the temple, and he goes out, but he thinks it's God's mercy. And he goes back in and he stares at the deity all day, and festivals he sees, and he basically a little bit forgot his separation from Braj, but it stayed there in your heart. And this is actually kind of a principle. C.S. Lewis talked about it, how people leave spiritual life. He said the way people leave spiritual life is not that they have some intellectual doubt. Prabhupada said we didn't go to the moon or something, or Prabhupada said this in the Bhagavatam. No, he says when you don't regularly revise or review or exercise your faith by regular practice, the remembrance of the experience that became your objective begins to fade. He said that's how people go. So somehow Kumar's that experience, that taste, he's a cowherd boy, and it's just so swabhavika bhakti. It's so natural within his consciousness. It began to fade a little bit because of the vision of Lord Jagannātha. And he really got into that vision. And he was so absorbed that sometimes even he had physical or mental pain because perception is dependent on attention. So someone who becomes very advanced and absorbed spiritually, sometimes they don't feel the pains of the mind and the body. They're completely absorbed. The mind is anutvam, ekatvam. It's tiny and it can only meditate on one thing at a time. So of course, when the senses are agitated, the mind may be drawn there. When you're in pain, the mind may be drawn to that, so you experience, but you don't have to experience it. If you become totally absorbed, and I know people in pain, where they're in pain, very ill, where they're bhajan. I had one friend who had neuralgia, that's nerves in his face is so painful. And then I meet him and he was describing his condition, but how his bhajan, as one sadhu once told Sachinandana Swami, are you chanting the name or is the name chanting you? So the name and the pleasure of that experience of love, an intensified experience of love, he became so absorbed. And he became so absorbed, he thought that now I've attained my perfection. And he stopped chanting. And then he desired, I want intimate service, but I'm just a newcomer here. I'm just a newcomer, and I can't get service like these pujaris that are born in Puri to Brahmin families and other types, and they're serving the deities. And then that disturbed him. And then he sees his guru, but he's meditating on the deity, and he just lost track, and his guru left. And then he searched and he found them, and the guru embraces him and then blesses him that whatever you desire while chanting will be fulfilled. Chanting is a service. Don't give up the chanting. Sometimes we minimize the service of chanting because it is not fruitive. We're not feeling we're accomplishing something. We can do something so much more important. That fruitive consciousness. Well, no. It's Taramadye, Sarvashreshte, nāma-saṅkīrtana, nira aparade poya. Of the 9 items of devotional service, chanting is the best. And if you can do it without offense, nira aparade poya, you can get prema. This is the most important service, is chanting. And we make sacrifice according to our faith. When we have faith, when we have some experience, then we'll make some idea of the goal or the objective. Then we make the sacrifice. And then he said, you'll live long a time. You'll always be in this form of the cowherd boy. And you'll have the right mentality always. You won't get, you have the right mentality for chanting. And sometimes you'll see me again. It's not time. And then again, he's separated from his guru. And then by his guru's mercy, he's begun to realize more and more that Puri is non-different than Vraja. And he's happy chanting, and then the king dies. And this, in his journey, it's very interesting because he keeps on getting these positions. And it's a very important point because he's not satisfied in those positions. It's like I'm teaching another class, and I was preparing it about Lord Shiva. And he was so detached, Lord Shiva. He was so detached from everything. And he's wearing these, I don't know, it's a garland of weeds and bones, and he's feeling like this is better than, than Lord Brahma with all this opulence, because his opulence is going to deteriorate anyway. So you become detached as it deteriorates. I'm not detached, I'm detached. But of course it mentioned that the real opulence of someone is their heart. And that's actually the essence of Braja Bhakti, that the real opulence of God is not his position, but his personality, madhurya, his sweetness. So the king dies, and for different situations, the son doesn't want to take it. His son is this great devotee. He doesn't want the headache. And the minister, somehow Jagannath speaks to the Brahmins. God can speak to you, that's no doubt. I always say destiny is the language of God, but in your heart also, definitely. I even told you once when I was kidnapped by the deprogrammers, and I wouldn't communicate with them, I wouldn't talk with them. I wasn't influenced by them in the least. But at a particular time, when I desperately wanted to get out, and I had a vision of Radhakala Chandri, Krishna spoke to me in the heart and gave me the detailed plan how to escape. I mean, and it was like, it was so clear. When the senses are controlled, the super soul is at reach. When the senses are controlled, the super soul is at reach. And then you hear God's voice. And it's actually mentioned in the Svetashvatara Upanishad. There's two birds sitting on the tree. One is eating the fruits of happiness and distress, and the other is witnessing it. And the witnessing bird is the super soul. But the bird that's eating the happiness and fruits and of happiness and distress, because ekatvam, anutam, the mind is very small and it can focus on one thing. And when it's absorbed like that, it can't hear the voice in the heart. And I just gave a great example. Patrick picked me up from the Ravals and drove me upstate. And he was telling me that he was listening to this psychologist, a famous psychologist, giving a lecture. And he had two people. He had an experiment where he had a screen. He had two people, and there was like a ball that goes between them. And he told them, just watch the ball, watch the ball, watch the ball. And a gorilla walked by in the background in this thing. And a high percentage of the people didn't see the gorilla because their consciousness their mind was focused someplace else. I forgot what connection that point was, but I'll just go on. And then, so Gopkumar's anointed the king, and this is also fulfilling his desire. The mantra is actually fulfilling his desire for intimate service. It just describes how wonderful it is when he's the king, and how pure he is, because he has this faith based on the mantra. He has this faith, this experience based on the mantra, that this lordship, this control, this opulence, it doesn't really do it. Because real pleasure is not the things you have, it's how you think about them. And we can just see this how you feel about them. Or we can say another way, real happiness is not controlling and enjoying the world, it's loving the world and loving God. Real happiness is something that doesn't come to the self as much as it's within the self. So you have an experience of that in spiritual life, and you get, and a religious experience means that the pleasure or taste you have from that is far superior to the ego and the senses. So sometimes God gives us an introductory offer to give us faith, but then we have to practice. And then if we don't practice, then we forget about that experience. But if that experience is there within the mind, and even if you're not feeling it all the time, but you're cultivating it, and maybe you have some glimpses, some experiences, then other things look so pale in comparison. So this kingship, this rulership, is not attracting him. But what attracts him is the intimate service of those Brahmins to the deity, and that's what he wants. And this is the symptom of prema. I mentioned is three things. You want to be with the Lord. You want to have a relationship with the Lord, and you want to serve the Lord. So he wants to be with the Lord. And service is the most important. And of course, service doesn't require the close proximity, but obviously with the person, there's so many opportunities for intimate service, and he wants that. And he sees how they relate, but he doesn't feel qualified, because even though they made him a king, he's now the king of Puri, but he doesn't have that intimacy of these Brahmins. And he became a little anguished with them. And now he's describing his experience, and I went half the class with review. So he wanted to join them. He's just a newcomer. How can he receive them this mercy? And so he just thought about it, of all the kinds of good fortune these Aryan Vaishnavas have, and he reflected on the various ways I want this. And of course, this is such a healthier desire, and this is what bhakti has to be, that we have greed in the world for so many things. But as we become purified, we want the gifts that Krishna consciousness gives. Nama-shreshtam manumapi sachi putram atrasarupam rupam tasyagraja uruparim mathurā gostavatim radha kundam girivaramaho radhika madhavas prapto yasya pratita kripya tam natosmi. These are the gifts that are given, and these are the things that are in your heart. So he's a special soul, and he's a Bṛhad-bhāsi. He's from Govardhan, and then he hears these songs that they're singing to Jagannath, and in those songs, sometimes there's the names of Krishna in Vrindavan, and they would sing them with proper with suitable melody. Kirtan is best when it's chanted deep from the heart in sonorous sonorous melodies, deep from the heart, sonorous melodies, and appropriate for the occasion and the time of the day, and having the bhava lead the kirtan rather than the passion. The passion will follow the bhava. It says Shanai, it gradually builds up. So he was hearing them singing these beautiful songs, and he hears this name, and then again, he starts to think of the seed in his heart. And he wouldn't, and this is a point that will be, because what does Sanatana Goswami want to present? Going back to the beginning, what he wanted to present is Lord Chaitanya's mission, which is what? There's nothing higher than the residents of Vrindavan. And the Upadeshamrita, that's the science of sacred space, there's nothing higher than Vrindavan and Govardhan and Radhakund. So if you have that attraction, and that really, in one sense, when we say diksha, dik means to give and sha means to destroy. And what does it give? Bhagavat Sarup Gyan, Sambandha Vishesh Gyan. It gives the form of God that's presented in your lineage, which you've been attracted to by the eternal nature of your heart. And the relationship you have, if not specifically, but at least the attraction to Vrindavan and to serve and to the gopis and to the cowherd boys and to the parents of Vrindavan. At least some that comes with our lineage, that comes with our connection. And if you have that, you will not be attracted to anything less, although it's attractive. Last Sunday, Tota, Braja, and Lal, it's a good law company, isn't it? Tota, Braja, and Lal, and Associates. Anyway, we went, I told you, the South Indian Temple. And it was very attractive. I love seeing I've had like 20 different altars, not just like on the back of the temple like that, but beautiful place. And I love going there. It was so attractive. All the deities, all the worship. It wasn't Braja Bhakti, but it was very, Guru Vaiha, Krishna Venkateshwara is there, Ramacha. But if that's all you have and you don't get Braj, you'll never be satisfied. I can see it in relationship to Braj, in relationship to Krishna, just in relationship to the general feeling of God and the devotees that go there. It's really, a lot of people are there. And just seeing these people with their hands folded, so reverently worshiping the deity, Bharate Bhumad Hoila, Manusya Janma Sara, Janma Sartika Kara, Kara Parupa. Those born in India are very fortunate, and they should work for the benefit of others. There's something special. There really is. And the people that are pious, just before the deities, that piety, they love God. But if you have braja and you experience braja, you'll never ultimately be satisfied with anything else, because that's what's in your heart. And this will carry him to the highest destination. And the story will show that this is the highest destination. And it will fulfill Sanatana Goswami's objective to build up your frame of reference, which means your understanding and your feeling, so that you'll be convinced and understand Braja. So he's doing it in such a brilliant way. Sadhu Sanga Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta Drishte Rajiva Lochane Sarva Sadhu Sanga Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta Drishte Rajiva Lochane Sarva Shoka Vila. Wait. Sadhu Sanga Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta Drishte. No, wait, I'm in the wrong scripture. Let's say Sadhu Sanga Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta Drishte Rajiva Lochane Sarva Shoke Vilayeta Nasyaj Jigamisha. Blessed by the strength of my closeness with saintly devotees, I was able to go see the lotus-eyed Lord, and whenever I went to see him, all my sorrow would dissolve. Thus, I never wanted to go any place else. So there was an attraction, unless the thoughts of Braj came up, because it's within Braj, but it's not the full manifestation of Braj. Tatapi mama samraja samparkena hidisvata bhagavat darshanananda samyam no deti purvavat. But because of my involvement with ruling the kingdom, my heart could never feel complete spontaneous ecstasy it used to feel from seeing the Lord. He was entangled in management and so many things. He was relishing the deity, these great devotees in Puri, and he got repeated darshan, and it's so attractive. But his full mind was not free, because it had to be occupied with other thoughts. And, we understand this. We sit down and chant. In the last few days, I was doing something. I was chanting, and I was chanting 2.5 mantras out and a half mantra in. I was starting the chanting with a kind of pranayam. And somehow my other finger, I was counting how many of these. Sometimes I chant 3 out and a half, 3.5 out and a half in. I was counting on my other finger, how many times I could chant, how many of these, groups of mantras, Hare Krishna mantras, because I was chanting, I could chant before my mind wandered to something else. You try it. You can't understand, you're concentrating, and then where it went. So, so many things enter, and practice means concentration without interruption, in the right mood, and prolonged. And then there's realization, there's taste, and then the full taste will come when that concentration is there, when that focus is there. But other things come in. So it's a challenge. Other things come in. And what to speak? He was the king. Can you imagine trying to be a serious devotee and being like the president of the United States or the president of Russia or Israel or any country. Can you imagine sitting down to chant Hare Krishna, and not and not having your mind go to these things? So even Prabhupada said, he said, I wish my devotees would take over the management so I can do Nirjan Bhajan without any people. At the Rath Yatra and other big festivals, I was surrounded by my royal entourage and unable to spend time enjoying the occasions. And I could no longer worship Lord Jagannātha according to my own desire in the various ways I had before. Then the other thing, when you're a big leader, you're surrounded by people who want to put you in the center. So it's a challenge to the bhakti conception where God is in the center, the periphery. I remember being in Govardhan and thinking that I think of myself, the subject, and I think of everything else as objects. So my room in Govardhan, when I'm chanting, it faces Govardhan. I can't see it from my room, but I know it's like 50 yards away. So I started to chant and said, let me try to be the object. Let me try to have my conception that I'm in the periphery and not the center. Let me have that conception that Giriraj is in the center. And let me be in the periphery. And that's what bhakti is. That's why we hear the Bhagavatam. We put God in the center. And then we hear about the devotees, and we aspire to be devotees, not in the center. We desire not to be in the center. In Nectar Devotion, it says you don't circulate anybody in front of the deities. You don't put a person in the center of the circle and dance around him. God is in the center. That's the bait. We walk around Govardhan. We do parikram. Consciousness, God in the center. We walk around the temple, God in the center. And now he's going to Rath Yatra, and he's in the center as the king. And he couldn't enjoy the occasions. There's so much protocol. There's so much, the spontaneity. He couldn't worship according to my own desire in the various ways I had before. So, Swa-ichcha, according to my free desires, Bahuda, in the various ways, worshiping, I'm not able in the various ways according to my spontaneous heart. I'm the king. I can't jump in the middle of the circle and dance wildly. My heart is just evam vata swapriya nāma-saṅkīrtana jitanu raga, in this way, without attachment, without any inhibition, chanting the holy name of the Lord, but I can't do it. I have to keep my profile. I have to keep, therefore when Lord Chaitanya was coming to Vrindavan, he came alone. He came alone. I remember one time Satsvarup came to Vrindavan. We put him in this house. It was very interesting too, because at that particular time, there was something that was happening. There was, the Hindus were marching on Ayodhya, and Narayan Maharaj was from Bihar, so that's in kind of North India. It's near there, and somehow the government was rounding up the Hindu leaders. They were rounding up the Hindu leaders because they were promoting this. And Narayan Maharaj was afraid they would round him up. So his assistant came to me, and I put him in Satsvarup Maharaj's house. So him and Satsvarup Maharaj stayed there. And he was very impressed with Satsrup Maharaj. He said, how he wakes up so early in the morning. He's very impressed. But then Satsrup Maharaj, he spoke to Satchidananda Swami. He said, I'm here and everybody's visiting me. And Satchidananda Swami, who's expert at this, he said, when you come to the Dham, you have to keep it sacred. You can't come to the Dham as the big acharya. It's very difficult. So I handed over the burden of ruling the king to the sons, ministers, and relatives. And as before, I became uninvolved, aloof. I continue living happily chanting in private and offering service to the lotus feet of Lord Jagannātha. This is the devotee's desire. And the material desire is we want to be a rock star, we want to be a guru, we want to be the topmost this, the topmost that, we want this, we want that. And even in Vaishnav society, we can get caught up in these things. But the real Vaishnav doesn't care. Nadadam najanam nasundarim kavitam va jagadisha kamaye. Mama Janmani Jamna Ishwari Bhav doesn't even care for liberation, just wants service. Narayana Prasarve Nakutas Chanya Bibhyati Swaga Pavaga Narakeshu Apitulyatadar Narayana Parayana. When you have that Parayana, you love. Nakutas Swaga Pavaga Nara, doesn't matter. Heavenly, this planet, doesn't matter. Hell. Doesn't matter. But because of the honor, respect I received from the populace, I could no longer feel happiness in Puri, so I lost interest in staying there. Still, he was chanting, but dun 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 dun, the king, hail the king, dun 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 dun, and the chamaras and everything. The dream of every man is not the dream, right? What's time of awakening for the self-realized soul is night. For the time of the awakening for the self-realized soul is night for the conditioned souls, that type of concept. And then in the morning, I went to Jagannātha. I'd leave, but when I saw his face, I forgot all my plans. And we'll continue. I'm going to write in my book 213, so I'll continue it on Wednesday from 213. And then where I am, I'll keep everybody up to 1 second here. Yamuna Jaya, welcome back.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you. Good to be home. Good to be home. Serving my husband, Mars.
What's that?
Serving my husband. I came back to serve my husband.
He made him some herbal tea and then went out to preach and to serve the bhakti. So he got his glass of herbal tea.
Yeah. And then I got to bounce.
Then you ran out quickly on him, poor guy. I'm going to have to talk to him at Rath Yatra, tell him that this is not my plan, that you're uncontrollable.
Yes, good to be home. He's sleeping now.
Okay.
I really loved many things, but two things. Thank you for always reminding us of what Akrura really did. I always think about, he was willing to pay any price to get to Vrindavan. He really was. And that's why his prayers that's why his prayers are the ones. I love that. And then something you've said often just really struck me today, the prayer of let me not want to be the subject. Let me be the object. Let me be the object. And you've said that many times, but today that just really stuck with me.
It's that shift.
Yeah.
Okay. Very well.
Thank you, Raj.
Samantha, nice to see you.
Hi, Bob. Nice to see you. Thank you for class.
I I really liked when you were talking about how when the senses are controlled, the super soul can be reached.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it was right around there you went into the gorilla experiment. So I don't know if there was a connection
Yeah,
there.
because in the gorilla thing, the senses were focused. This is good. Let me explain it. We're focused on going back and forth, so you don't see the gorilla. So the analogy was when our consciousness is focused materially, we don't see God in the background, that He's always instructing us. The two birds on the tree. The one bird is eating the fruits of happiness and distress. The other is witnessing it. And that's the friend. He wants to give direction. So the super soul wants to give us direction. It wants to tell us how to get back to God, but we can't hear it because our consciousness is focused someplace else. Just as focusing on that bulb, you don't see the gorilla. I mean, it's not the super soul, but the point, the analogy is that when the mind is focused on something, it can't hear other things which are within their perception. Just like there's cars outside, but I didn't hear it at all during the class because I was absorbed. But because I started giving this example, my consciousness went there. So, you got it? Thanks
Got
for
it.
that.
And that's the witness bird.
The witness bird is the super soul.
Okay. Got it.
And,
Thank you.
and we're the ones eating the fruits of happiness and stress. So because we're absorbed, we can't hear God. But when we control those senses, then we take the consciousness from the senses, then we can hear the super soul. Okay?
Thank you.
Hey, Brahma, great to
Good,
see you.
good morning, Maharaj. It's funny, yesterday I had to give a seminar to our ISKCON Resolve mediation trainees, and the video I showed was the gorilla video.
Really?
Yeah, you know,
You break
mediator.
it up. Can you get closer to the router?
Here, yep. 1 second, we'll get it back. 1 moment. Uh, okay, it's connecting now. Um, Outside. Now it's connected. And so I showed that as an example of paying it. Most of success in mediation comes from the mediator stepping back and paying attention. And just like we have to do for japa. So the two lessons were you better pay attention to your japa in the morning. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to mediate successfully. And I gave an example by one of the top mediator trainers in America. Who must be someone I know well. He's the top theoretician of mediation in America. And he teaches a course, Meditation for Mediators, because unless you're a meditator, you can't really mediate. So as a devotee mediator, they had to really focus on can you listen to the holy name in the morning, and if so, you're going to listen to the parties, and and that gorilla was an example of paying keen attention. Thank you. So I share that with you.
And I just say we can't do this, that, but probably it has a lot of other applications about what is the cause of a lot of the conflicts that people are not listening to each other.
Precisely so. On another matter, when you're free, call me about our trip to New York. Some very good opportunity has come up, and I want to ask your thoughts.
Wow. Okay. I only, funny, you're the guy that's usually jam-packed and I have all day. If I could call you because I have a class in another 3 minutes, and then about 10 o'clock.
Please call me then. That'd be perfect. A certain Jay Swami would like to come up that weekend. I want to discuss that with you.
To the retreat.
Yes, I want to discuss if that's a good timing or not. We can discuss later.
He'd have to find a place to stay.
Well, we'll discuss that. I spent the whole day with him yesterday,
Okay,
but we'll discuss whenever you're free. No rush.
okay, Haribo.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj. Nice class. By the way, these classes are inspiring, so thank you
Thanks.
again.
Thank you.
Haribol.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else want to say hello? I got about 2 minutes before my other class.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thanks for the class. So
Are you going to come up to the retreat any chance?
yes, we are coming.
Wonderful. I think it'll be a real treat for the devotees also to all meet you. There's somehow or other.
Finally, I'm in the US and I can come for your retreats, and I'm happy for that. Yeah.
And happier than you is your mother.
Yeah.
Because her only happiness is your happiness.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
She really worked hard. And she's in that now. It's great. Amazing story.
Yes. It's just Krishna's blessing.
And we can celebrate the ban on
Yeah.
people from those countries that can't come now,
Oh my God.
and how you were able to beat the ban and come into the country. It's amazing.
It's just so amazing. Yeah.
On a religious visa to teach Hinduism.
It was your blessing, Mars.
That's my friend Jayanta. He's the best at doing that stuff.
Yeah, he is.
He
Yeah.
gives them so many pages, they don't want to read it. Okay, Haribo.
Hare Krishna Gurudev.
Haribo.
Very quickly about the real wealth of the person is the person's heart. That's the one that struck me
Very
today.
good. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I have another class now, so I'm going to have to go. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindu bheva